Yeah, that works. There's some things like my co-founder is like quite a mobile dude, and there's some things.
He moves like exceptionally well.
Yeah, and even under a barbell, he's even more impressive. But there's some things we're looking at, like the library, because I forget our total library counts at like 1,300 or 1,400 exercises, and there's some things I'm just like, no. I'm looking down at this list like, you want me to do what? It's like, what am I, like the Asian dude in Ocean's 11? Like, get the fuck out of here! I'm not doing this nonsense. You do it. Yeah. It's been a bit interesting.
It's a good mix, though. The two of you, like, it's good dabble of two worlds, you know.
Yeah, and it's totally by happenstance. So we went to grad school together, and he just sat next to me in school, and we both, like, when we fucked off and didn't go to class, like, we just played pool for 4 years. That's like literally what we did. Which is no, I mean I was in powerlifting and he was in like CrossFit, so he was quite high level. We were the only two that really like. I thought that didn't sound right. Yeah. I thought I wasn't getting you. We got you now. Welcome. There you go. You're now coming through. Yeah, he was like high level CrossFit, man. Like West Coast regionals every year. Really? Like go to Wadapalooza, kick ass, take names.
Nice. Yeah, I can see he moved like very, very well.
Yeah. Well, he's one of the best. He's what they fucked around with the weight classes, but he's like one of the best Olympic weightlifters in like the 71 kilo class. And I will routinely compete in like the 125 kilo class in powerlifting, so it's quite the contrast.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been like, it was just, we both got into practice in California, like right by where we graduated, and most people just left because like, fuck this, way too expensive. And we would just have like, honestly, it started off as like therapy sessions. Like, hey, do you want to just like, we didn't really hang out in school that much other than playing pool when we should be in class. And he was like, hey, like, can we talk about like how you're running your shit? Because he was like kind of in a CrossFit box. I was in a powerlifting gym. And we just kind of like, it's like, dude, it's either like we get a kilo of blow and we start selling this off the side, or we figure out a way to make money. And that was the inception of like, you know, the app and the website and all that. But like, I think and one of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about, because in paying more attention to you, I empathize with you and also sympathize, because you guys have to deal with way more problems than most people. Because a lot of people in the podcast space, they talk about it, but they're not actually, like their day-to-day is just talking about it. Like that's their experience. And they may have had experience in the past, but they don't have like contemporaneous experience that they can constantly narrate on. And like, especially now, I find like the evolution of like the fitness industry and the space that we're working in, if you're not currently running a business that involves you showing up every day and speaking and interacting to people, and like we were talking before, having staff, and you're not keeping your finger on the pulse, like I don't want to hear from you. Right. So there's been a lot, even the last couple of weeks, because I was pretty big on fitness podcasts, that I can't listen to podcasters anymore. Like in the last 3 months, a podcaster is useless. Like the landscape of the fitness industry was evolving, and like, oh, what do we do with TikTok? Does anyone know what to do with TikTok?
Yeah, that's a lot of that.
Yeah, but now it's like, okay, what do I do with cash flow? What do I do with profit? What do I do with employees? What do I do with like the trajectory of a business that I actually have to run, rather than just sitting around kicking the ball around of like, well, you know, keto. We're going to do a keto diet today. It's like, look, podcasters who aren't in the trenches, which is something that you guys, because I don't think people realize that you guys own how many gyms?
Well, it was 3. It's just recently become 2, but it's about to be 3 again in 10 weeks.
We're on 3 leases. I think that counts as 3.
Yeah, that's what does the bank say you own?
3 gyms.
Yeah, or that's probably a better way to look at it. But I think too, like you guys, how long have you guys worked together for?
Good question. 6 years, 6.5.
How did that start?
Well, we were both doing CrossFit. So Lachy was an intern at the gym that I started training at for CrossFit.
Okay, and like I know a lot of CrossFitters, like my business partner being one. At what point do you think that this is a good idea to start a business?
About 5-6 days in.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay. No, like prior business.
No, yeah, truly about 5-6 days. So we didn't have any prior business experience other than I always wanted to have a gym before we started.
Right.
I was already keen on it, but like that was, before CrossFit, it was like that was a long way in the future, because I thought I needed like $1 million to get all the equipment and have like a Globo gym,
right,
or something like, or kind of like that, or like a DeFranco style gym. But then like everyone was opening gyms, so we were on basically straight away. And then we just had the delay of like us training and everything like that, and then like I guess really getting around to it.
And then, but I remember when you came to me, you kind of wanted a commercial gym, right? But then you had exposure to DeFranco's gym.
I wanted a gym like a hybrid between DeFranco's gym and a commercial gym, which just took tons of money. So I was like, oh, that's off in the future, when I have money.
It's like a Tennessee Tech Sports Performance Center with like awesome racks and custom flooring and all that sort of stuff. And It is expensive.
Would have made no money.
No. I mean,
Would have been a disaster.
I think to your point though, yeah, like I think that's one way that Raph and I have been able to create so much content through the podcast and stay relevant is, yeah, we're actual gym owners doing it every single day, whereas a lot of people are speaking from past experience. But, the fitness industry is so turbulent and it changes so much that, like, I think people have gone on a journey with us because we started as CrossFit gym owners and we've evolved now to a semi-private model. Like, who would have thought 6 years from now, our gyms are so different. And then we're going in for a more high-end model now. If we had done the gym thing, got out 6 years ago, and then just been podcasting since then, all we would know is the CrossFit world. We wouldn't know like the evolution and gone through thousands of sales calls in person and learned and had all that growth. And it's not like we're not valuable. You can still have insights from the outside looking in, but it's so different. It's so different.
Yeah, I think the ability to keep the finger on the pulse. Like, fuck, I won't listen to podcasts where guys don't train. Like, I'm sitting here looking at books and looking at this guy going, those are 8-inch arms. You are clearly hungover right now. Like, I do not care what's coming out of your mouth about nutrition, right? Yeah. And it's like, and the same thing with business. Like, fuck, how many times I get inundated with like business coaching. It's like, unless you're a business that you are residing in. Like, I have business coaches, but they're people that are just mentors that if I'm lucky enough to grab them for like an hour a month, right? Because they're too busy working in and on their own business, right? And I think too, people don't respect when there's a dynamic, like when there's two people. Like, very early on, like our whatever you want to call what we do on the internet, it almost didn't make it off the ground because my business partner had me by the throat. Like, and Jordan's not like Jordan competes in the 71 kilos, but he could
only just reach.
His name's Jordan as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, he's
talking about yourself in the third person.
Could you imagine? Just the ultimate douche move. I'm losing it with COVID, man. I just started talking to myself. But like, we hit like what could have been an impasse really early, and it was just like I'd never been in business, period, and like I'd owned my own practice for like a short period of time before we kind of got together, so I didn't have to answer to anyone, and all of a sudden I had to worry about another personality and like another set of like, and this is where like we talked about awareness and all that stuff on the last podcast. That's where a lot of that started, because I'm like, man, how did I end up with his hands around my fucking collar? Like, that escalated really quickly. Like
literally?
Yeah.
Oh, literally.
No. So we were doing, it's funny, not many people, like, I haven't told this story many times. We were filming some content. We were trying to set up cameras. We had no idea what the fuck we were doing. Do you guys know Barbell Medicine?
Nah.
Barbell Medicine? Nah.
Nah. So they're bigger-ish in the States, and the guy was local, and it was a little bit contentious. He was in with Starting Strength, and people were like, oh, like, because I was pretty vocal about my opinions on Starting Strength. And so this guy came in, and the weird part is the dude that we had in was also named Jordan. So there's 3 Jordans in a room. Yeah, it was like a
doomed to fail.
It was like a Benny Hill skit or something like that. And anyways, I was just like, I think I like trying to get my Jordan's attention, and like somebody snapped my fingers or something to get him to turn on a camera, and he just like, I wasn't paying attention, and he hit record, and then the guest Jordan left the room, and then as quick as I could turn around, my Jordan was in my face. I was like, you ever fucking talk to me like that again, we're over. I was like, shit. Whoa, dude. And like, I had no idea, but like, when looking back, I was kind of being a dick, right? Like, I was kind of like, hey, Jeeves, get to work, right? Right. And it was just like, ever since then, it's been like, that's probably been the most helpful and insightful like reference point, because like I'm in a, like, I have a relationship with my girlfriend, but he's the longest relationship I've ever had.
Yeah.
Right. I've been attached to this dude's hip for 7 years. So how do you guys manage like the interpersonal stuff? Have you ever grabbed him up by the throat?
Can't reach.
No? Is that the issue?
Well, I mean, we've talked about this a lot, and it's like it's funny because I have gym owners approach us and say, we want some advice, or people that want to start a gym ask for advice about starting gyms, and a lot of them do it with business partners, which I think is good. Not many people really go out solo and crush it. I think it takes a very unique individual to do that, and I think also a lot of people don't realize that a lot of people that seem like solo entrepreneurs actually have business partners that you didn't know about. So I think it's like 99% of cases, but I'll say to them, they go, oh, what's your best advice starting gym? We're thinking of painting the walls this color and having this logo. And I'm like, literally the relationship between you guys right now, like how battle tested is that relationship? Because at the end of the day, if this relationship breaks, it doesn't matter. Everything else falls apart. And we know that better than anything because it started with 5 of us and now there's only 2. And so we individually had to break all those relationships, and each one subsequently was harder than the other and more emotional, and there was more money involved and it was nastier. And so it's just like, and I think that process also brought us closer together. But yeah, there's been moments where I'll act out or I'll do something, mostly me acting out, and he'll just be like, hey, we've got to meet up. And I'm like, fuck, what have I been doing in the last few months that's pissed him off? And we'll just sit down and just like straight in the face, like, hey, you're doing this, it needs to stop. And that's it. And I think a lot of business partners avoid that conversation. They just let it build up and fester, and then they resent each other. And then they turn around one day and it's like, in 2012, May 16th at 4:30 p.m., you said this to me. And I was like, bro, it's 2020. You've been holding that in since then. And it's legit. That's what it's like. And that's at that point, it's over. Like, how long do you think we let it go now if we piss each other off?
No, you never want it to go more than a week. If
Yeah,
you're
I would say
referencing something that was like a week ago, it's too far.
usually I would say it doesn't get beyond 24 hours.
Yeah.
Like, if you bring something up that I'm concerned about, I can't sleep. I'm like, I have to message you about it. I have to get clear on it.
Yeah.
And also I think and you can probably relate to this, most of the time how it went down in your head is also different how it went down in their head. Like, it was just a passing comment or something and he meant it this way and you completely took it in a different direction. And now you're thinking to yourself, what the fuck's he plotting? Yeah, what's going on here? Am I getting kicked out of the business? And then it's something completely different to what you expected. So clearing that up, I think, is pretty good. And we've got plenty of trust now, so it's just an easy conversation to have.
Yeah, I think like that set the tone of like, here's the line and ever since then, like it's been so easy to have hard conversations with literally everyone else. Like, I don't know, someone at the grocery store adds something to your bill. Like, it's pretty easy for me. Like, once having my friend and business partner grab me by the collar and him like have like a real conversation. Like, yeah, no, actually, I only have 3 steaks in there, not 2. Like, that's where some people be like, oh, I didn't want to cause a fuss. Like, fuck that, man. Like, better to say it now, and then rather than having to walk to the IGA because Woolies ripped you off for the steak, right? But like,
He knows it now.
Well, that's the one thing I found is like, in the business end, that's probably the biggest. If like everything got shut down tomorrow and we never made another dollar, that would probably be the biggest thing I took away, which seems kind of counterintuitive. Like, the point of a business is to make money, but coming off the back end of 6 years, 5 years in business, and even that sounds so silly to me to say.
Yeah.
Like, when people come to me like any business advice, like, is any time when you guys are approached with that, do you say start a business in 6 days? Is that your answer?
No, and I would say number one as well is it's never like choose your business partners crazy lightly, which is how we did it.
Wait, what?
We chose our business partners so lightly. It was just like, oh yeah, cool, these guys are here.
Yeah.
It was more like, we don't have that much money, so
Yeah.
who has money to add up the total money to be the money we need to start? It's just not a good way to start it.
But do you think like that immediately set you up for success long term? Because it's like you probably had to overcome hurdles that if you were to draft it on a whiteboard, like you would reach your first obstacle way further along, and you wouldn't be, like you said, battle tested to overcome it.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that it definitely allowed us to get started sooner. So obviously we got the jump a little bit than other people. But at the same time, the amount of energy that you waste, like we started doing meetings, the 5 of us, the 5 original business partners, on a Sunday morning. And like...
No, hold on. But the one that organized it on a Sunday morning didn't show up on the Sunday morning.
Oh,
yeah.
Was he the first guy out of the company? He'd be the first guy get snuffed.
He was actually.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think it slows it down. I think if you had really good business partners to start with, like a mentor or someone like that could help you, I think it would accelerate it.
But don't you think, like, I don't know, everyone I've talked to who has a successful business always says that if they could go back, they would do it differently. But I'm kind of a believer in like the butterfly effect of like, look, no, it happened exactly how it had to have happened, right? And that's kind of like, I don't know, a weird holistic namaste in bed all day sort of way of looking at it. But like, I still don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
I was sitting down with like a gym franchise owner this morning, or a gym owner this morning. Guy's worth $700 million, and he was talking to me about business, and I was just like, there was 2 symbols in my head, just like clanking back and forth. I was like, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. Yeah. But I think when stuff comes my way, it's like, yeah, I'll stay up for 4 days, and I need to know what like this camera feature is. Oh yeah, I'll just be on YouTube for the next. Pass the Adderall real quick. Oh great. Where it's like, I think if you had like, I see people that have the investor come in, right? Like, you know, money bags behind the scene that no one knows about, but everyone thinks this guy's a solo act. And I think you guys could probably put a few put a few people in that place.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like they run into one obstacle that money can't solve, and then they're done.
Yeah, I think, when your resources are extremely limited, like, a good point is when we really opened the gym. So, like, when we started CrossFit, it was literally that, I think you got it down to, you search it on Google. It's like literally that same week we opened.
Same month, yeah.
Was the first time in the history since CrossFit had started that the search, like the graph of searches for CrossFit going up actually tipped and started going down. So,
February 2014.
Yeah.
On Google Trends.
Yeah.
Take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. So anyway, so he tells me that like years later, but
we bought in at the peak, basically.
Yeah, just at the end of the peak.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because so many CrossFit gym owners before us that had obviously given us the inspiration and courage and belief that it would be easy had just ridden an amazing wave. So no matter what they did, they literally just had to put CrossFit on the door in their name, and they were just cash in hand every day. And we were the opposite. We had a little bit of it. We had the tail end of it, but then it just became very difficult.
It constantly fell below expectations because all of that, they only knew one thing. But like, dude, I've been in business like 4 years. People just non-stop come in the door. It's like unreal. You just put this CrossFit thing on the side and it never stops, and it gets better and better and better.
Yeah.
And that was everybody's experience.
Yeah.
So like, even we spoke to, a lot of gym owners. And I haven't been like around the world speaking to new gym owners. It was going well for everybody because it was just getting more popular for everybody. So like, that's why we, I guess not a mistake, but we were misled a little bit.
Yeah.
And when we opened, we had the exact opposite experience, which is like every month, it seems to be getting less popular.
Yeah. And it even went so well. A friend of ours moved to Hawaii and opened a gym there. It was so successful that he got bored and he's like, done, ticked it, and then was back within like 2 or 3 years. Like that's how easy it was at the time. And I think the lessons from that is no matter what they did, they were making money. So every decision seemed like a great decision. Oh, let's change the classes to this structure, or let's add these movements to the program, or let's hire this coach. Everything, they were making money at every turn. So you don't really learn anything necessarily because you're kind of just winning in every scenario. Whereas for us, we were losing in every scenario. So it was like, make that decision, it went worse. Okay, pull it back. It went this decision, it's worse, pull it back. And so we, I think, had a more accelerated learning than our, gym owner friends that had done it for 4 or 5 years before us, just even in that first 2 years, because bad business partners, really limited resources, and CrossFit not going well for us. So I think that's why now we've been, in some respects more successful than a lot of those other gym owners, and they're still going okay, but we just started different times, we learned different lessons.
I think like when it comes to hitting that, everyone's like, yay, CrossFit, we're making money hand over fist, and you guys come in and it just starts to take a tank. What's the first personal or professional system that you had to input?
Ooh, yeah, it's funny because when I heard systems, it's when you start in business, systems are important, but you don't know what the fuck they are. You have no idea how to build them. You're like, what is a system? I know that's this magical unicorn thing that exists out there in the ether. I just don't have them. But the first system we got,
I know it is, yeah, for sure. It was the sales system. So before it was like everyone would just come and join, right? And I remember when like we said we're active and bad, like people just walk in and you'd be like, look, when I have time, I'll get you that membership form. You just sign, right? And they just like wait to sign it. Like people they were knocking down your door to join. And then that was like the first thing we had to organize. We're like, how are we going to get people to like, orderly sign up? We're going to do like the 2-week free trial. Then we went for the put down your credit card and we start billing you in 2 weeks. So you get like more of a commitment of somebody, right? So we went from like 2-week free trial to a 1-day free trial to a 7-day, but you put down a commitment all the way to, and then we like eventually got to like, the phone sales and everything after that. But it was like that first one of how do we get people to commit earlier was the first system I think we put a lot of time into improving.
I feel like you guys should do like a marriage game. Like I should ask a question because you're like, I know the first system. Like, I know it. I'm going to tell the story.
Yeah, I remember the operational system of PT into group. So our onboarding was, you want to get fit? Just jump into class. Like, we're doing snatches and deadlifts and pull-ups. Like,
get going.
You're a 45-year-old woman that's never exercised before. It's at walking and, Pilates. You'll figure it out. And that obviously is horrific. And anyone that does that is just, totally irresponsible. And you should not own a gym. But we said, okay, let's do PT before we get into group. So I remember building the onboarding system of like, okay, what are the movements we need to learn? How are we going to structure them in the sessions? how does a goal setting session look like? And the funny thing is, I still remember we have this video of us explaining to the coaches, me talking to the camera about, okay, this is how a goal setting session works. We're going to focus on process goals, not like end goals. And we're going to divide them into categories and stuff. And the whole video, I'm no shirt, 5 minutes post-workout, like middle of summer, covered in sweat on this whiteboard, like still breathing heavy. And I reckon that was our coach's video system for probably like 3 or 4 years before I like one day looked back in the system and was like, fuck, it's not very professional.
I think you send a message, right? Under promise, over deliver.
There you go.
What about on a personal side? Like, in just talking with you guys before and kind of watching you guys operate for the keyhole of social media, like, and just knowing like the relative, similar businesses, but you guys have way more shit to deal with and staff and postal codes and light bills and all that shit.
Yeah.
Personal systems. Like, were you always, for me, like, it took a couple of anxiety attacks at a visit to the hospital for me to like, I should probably like maybe sleep more than 3 hours, but I should probably go to bed at like 8 and be up at like 4.
Yeah, we definitely needed them. I think our probably most notorious gym owner story was, so we used to sleep at the gym. He lived in Bondi, where he lives now. This is our first gym in Marrickville, and I lived in the North Shore. So that's like, at least for both of us, a minimum 30-minute drive. And we both never really spent much time in Marrickville at all. And we were just like, it's just too inconvenient to go back home if I got to come back here early in the morning and wake up. We didn't really have any money. We weren't paying ourselves anything. And I think I had a car. Did you? I don't think
I was
you
on
had.
the train. I was like, fuck that.
And 5, 6, 7 years ago, Marrickville it didn't make you feel comfortable being young, walking out in the street there, especially if you're from kind of the bubble suburbs like we were. So we were soft, right? And so it's easier to stay at the gym. No aircon, super hot, mosquitoes like absolutely mauling you in the middle of the night. And so we'd sleep at the gym. Obviously, we'd wake up in the morning, coach the class, go back to sleep, train. And where we would eat food is we had a connection because it's a kind of industrial area. So down the road at the end of the street, we had befriended one of the warehouse owners that supplied some of the local cafes. And he would let us know when there was extra boxes of sweet potato expiring. So obviously we couldn't really afford food. So he'd be like, hey guys, come get some boxes. So we would get our knee rehab tire drag, which was our kind of sled. So we'd built an empty tire, we'd punctured a hole in it, attached a rope to it so we could pull it, put a plank of wood in it so we could like stack plates onto it. But we would just walk that thing down empty to the end of the street, load it up with sweet potato, walk it back to the gym. And I reckon 85% of our daily calories was sweet potato, stab it a few times with the fork, chuck it in the microwave, put it on high, take it out, eat it with butter, back to sleep.
Just over and over again.
Have you eaten a sweet potato since?
I don't like them anymore.
Yeah.
I'll eat sweet potato chips because I'm like, there's like the posh sweet potato.
Yeah, you made it. Just moving on up to the east side. This guy gets it in a bag. I used to drag the shit in the fucking tire. Jesus Christ.
No, it's legit. We used to get those massive ones, like ones that like are so hard to even cut through, like 3 kilo sweet potatoes.
Oh, like monster.
Like
GMO, Monsanto. They could probably walk to the gym if they wanted to.
Dude, we would take photos of them. Like we got it would almost be like we one-upped like Jimmy. Jimmy was like the super potato from last week, and it's like now we got Fred. Fred is like 4.5 times the size.
Barely fit
Jimmy.
in the microwave.
It's crazy. Some of them were absolutely enormous. Anyway, so that was where we were coming from. And so, obviously we needed some personal systems, some organization. I really think the first thing that helped me with business, like just organizing myself personally, but really helping the business, was just carrying around a journal everywhere. Like one of our good friends who kind of gone off the face of the planet these days, but he was quite influential in the beginning with business stuff. He would always carry around a notebook, a really nice notebook. And he got it into my head. He was like, if you buy a nice notebook and you buy a nice pen, you will treat it well, and the ideas you put in it will be better quality ideas. Yeah. So now,
continue
pulling out yours. Is that a Moleskine?
No.
Oh no, that's the exact brand that he loved as well. What's
Mont Blanc?
Mont Blanc.
This is like, I don't own nice shit.
Fuck.
This is the nicest thing I own by far because this is the most valuable thing in my possession.
Right. So since then I've always invested in not quite a Mont Blanc, but just bought Moleskines, which is like a $40, $50 just notepad, which for some people like you can get it for $2.50 at Officeworks. I was like, no, because you want it to be nice. Like you want it to be leather. You want to like treat it well. You want the ideas to go in there to be better. And over time, that's just helped me get tasks done, organize my thoughts, put ideas in there, and it's created like a good bit of structure, which everything else can kind of branch off.
I used to write my schedule on my hand. That is like literally when I got the tattoos.
Before phones.
I was just like, even with phones, I was just like, would have a pen in my ear and be like, oh, okay, she switched to 3:30. Scratch out 3:30, right? Karen, 3:30. Like, oh, okay, yeah. I'm working from a few people. It's like,
you really didn't have much time, did you?
No, or like, and it's just, I don't know. Like, it's hard because people come to me for advice on deadlifting, maybe, but you'd probably find someone better than that. Business, like, I still don't know what the fuck's going on. Like, I remember being, maybe a year and a half ago. Like, I flew everywhere. I was on a plane 2-3 times a week, and it's like, planes are expensive when you're sitting over the wing next to the toilet, and that's where you can find me.
Right.
And I'd be the guy who'd like crack a can of tuna on like an international transatlantic flight. Everyone's like, are you fucking serious, bro? It's like, yeah, just wait till the boiled eggs. Wait till the boiled eggs come out, motherfucker. Like, that was the same thing.
You
like,
truly are a pest. You take
I'm the worst.
such a big seat.
Yeah. Like, listen, you're not getting this armrest for like 16 hours. And I got 3 courses.
I'm taking the armrest over this one as well.
Yeah. This is, like, I've taken some flights, man, that it's like, and for me, that was the only option I had. Like, I didn't have a home.
You cannot bring out a tuna on a plane.
Yeah, 100%. I was flying from Heathrow to Beirut. I was flying from London to Beirut, and it was just like everyone's like, "Are you fucking like 8 hours right into the heart of the Middle East?" And everyone's like, "I'm gonna smell like fucking fish cutting off the plane." I was like, and I was bigger then too. I was 130 kilos.
And what are you now?
Like 113.
Okay.
So
shit.
Yeah. So I was like, and it was and I can fly like a little bit. Like if I'm doing something now, like to get me to travel now, it takes a lot more. So someone wants me to come there. I'm like, business class. And there you go. Yeah, sure. I'm like, oh fuck, I can't believe that worked. I get to lay down in the sky. That's fucking crazy. But yeah, I was way bigger, and I was just sitting there like cans of tuna to the dome. Well, what is the advice that you give people then? Like when people come to you guys for business, and if you guys are going to message me, don't message me, message them. Sorry, because your DMs are just going to get flooded.
For
now.
Business advice.
Yeah, like what is the one piece of advice you find yourself giving most often for business?
Well, yeah, I mean, the business partner thing is pretty critical. Like,
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're going to go into business with someone, you have to have unbreakable trust. You have to have tested the relationship more than like we're training partners. Like it just needs more testing than that. We honestly just got lucky. As well, our skill set is quite opposite. So like I'm super creative. I'll do a lot of artistic stuff. I'll take care of all the marketing and the creative writing and stuff. And it's not like Raph can't do some of those things, but then Raph's also really good at numbers and binary stuff and also did law. So he's got like the legal brain side of things as well. So he just gravitated more towards the numbers and the operational side of things. I went more to the creative marketing side of things. So I think that was just really a blessing in disguise, like having opposite strengths. If he just like loved marketing and loved content creation and videos and that sort of stuff, it'd be tough because I'd be like, no, I'm doing that. And then be like, well, I want to do that. I don't want to do the numbers. And you just be fighting over that. So being opposites from that perspective, so critical. And then obviously trust before that is huge.
Yeah, I think as well, it's kind of fallen apart with the other people because there was a huge difference in ambition and work ethic as well. They just, well, not all of them, but some of them maybe not as ambitious with their goals. And that really starts to hit hard because then you're like, one person's trying to keep you down. It's like you're both on a soccer team. Like one person wants to win the championship, one person doesn't really care.
Yeah, they're happy for a draw.
That's a disaster. It's a fucking disaster. Particularly when things get hard.
Yeah.
You feel like the other person's going to feel like you're letting them down. The other person's like, I don't know why you're doing all this stuff. It's, a waste of time. Or even, why would you take those risks when it could just risk everything? And there's no point because I don't really care about the upside. So I think you got to have some similar ambition and similar work ethic. Otherwise, you're going to run into troubles at some point in the journey.
I think once you start fostering resentment, like look out.
Yeah.
Because you'll have to bring 2 coffins for that one because you'll fucking kill yourself. I've had similar situations in the past, not with this. I mean, I've done some stuff in the past with people. It's like, even in relationships, period, where it's like, if those goals aren't aligned and you think someone's holding you back and you start resenting them, it's like,
fuck.
That's just like betrayal, 7th circle of hell, Dante's Inferno, burn the whole fucking thing to the ground. Like, it's over.
Yeah.
And you can go so far in fitness. You might just look where you're going. You can do stuff all around the world. You make a huge impact, or you can just train, a handful of clients in a garage.
Right.
And you might start with the handful. So that disparity of how far you want to take this thing that could happen really quickly.
Yeah, and I think it's such a weird industry because in any other industry, and I don't know any other industry, but your passion can take you pretty far without having a scrap of business knowledge. You could probably live off this, where if I was passionate about aerospace engineering, I would probably have to have some sort of business sense at some point. I would have to put a suit on. I would have to go to a job interview. I would have to show up to work.
You could rise up in jobs from your skills.
Yeah, where it's like people can monetize fitness very easily. I think easier because it's very objective. it's objective and subjective. Like the subjective, like that guy looks really big or that girl's really hot. Like I'm going to buy her protein powder, whatever. I don't know how these things work anymore. But like any other business, you'd have to actually show merit on paper.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like where you guys, I think, are super interesting in the idea of like notoriety and credibility, right? Like you have credibility from having the experience, but you also have a lot of notoriety, which I think is super rare because I find a lot of people with notoriety don't necessarily have the credentials and experience that are, you know, they're the flash in the pan freaks that don't really have the business sense. Like they just have big deadlifts or like they have sick abs or they have a good.
We have that as well.
But dude, that's the point though, right? Like I think that's the cool part is like I always look at it like a coefficient, like an evidence coefficient of like, look, I know fucking 100 PhDs. That's not hard to get. People are marching them across the stage every year. There's only one world record holder, right? Julius Maddox, like just went for that 800-pound bench press. He's going to be able to offer you insight to the bench press that no PhD could ever offer you.
Yeah.
He's got like the triple crown PhD of experience. But the one thing that got me, and I was pretty resentful like really early on because like resources I thought were scarce, and for me to have someone else must have less. And I still kind of get it when I see people come up. Now, I don't really care, but there's still kind of this thing of like, I mean, I do have to keep an eye on the competition. I do have to watch what other educators, I'm going to air quote educators because I'm still like a spiteful little fuck who thinks that other people are doing shit wrong. But you guys have to like watch your flank, or maybe you don't, but this is kind of the question is like, how much energy do you guys have to expend to like what other gym owners are doing in your demographic, like in your geographical area that your gyms are open, as well as the podcast, as well as in the online space where like the e-commerce sort of goes down. Do you guys just stay in your lane and focus on your own shit? If it works, it works.
It's a good question. I think that you can get really, and I think this is with all advice, is if you add up all the advice, it all cancels out, right? It all you say people who's like, nah, just stay in, focus on your thing, and you got other people who are like, business is about defense and it's about knowing what your competition is and staying ahead of your competition. And I think that, yeah, ultimately, and this is stuff Naval talks about, is you take all the advice and then ultimately the best people decide what they want to do in the end. Like, and so I think that's how it's always been for us is, you know, with the new project that we're starting, a lot of it was like, oh, where is the competition at right now? It's like, where is the competition not? There's heaps of competition in group fitness. In fact, everyone in Australia is infatuated with the F45 story because it's a homegrown grassroots Aussie titan that took off overseas, and every single gym franchise is trying for it. We know like 4 or 5 of them that have 50 plus locations, and they're all trying to be the next F45. And we were in group fitness. We've moved to semi-private because we thought, firstly, we don't think group fitness is that effective. It's mostly just a bunch of bullshit. But also, if we go there, we're just going to get commoditized with all these other people. So how can we step out of it firstly? And then where is the competition with that? Not in Australia, but overseas. So because where there's competition, it's obviously there's some success there. Obviously there's a viable market. There's people paying for it. And the way we saw it overseas was like, wow, there's some like really, really high quality premium, like semi-private PT training that has amazing brand building and it's taking off overseas. It's not in Australia yet. Lucky we had the sort of, I guess the advantage of the podcast where we could travel to the US, tour the whole country, do all the gyms, see what's working, what's not working, what brands are killing it, and be like, all right, how far off is the Australian market? Is it ready for it? And then really we just thought, okay, now is the time. So there's a little bit of like, in terms of the gym space, the podcast is kind of always just the story on top of who we are as people. So we don't worry about it too much. The same as you with this podcast is it's you and your business partner. So it's not competition because it's yourself, you know, so no one can compete with you because it's you, right?
Well,
There's no
this is a totally selfish endeavor. Like if I don't ever release this, it's like, oh, I just get to pick their brains about like gym shit. And then maybe if I ever open my own space, I'll just go back and listen to this and like glean the advice that they gave me for this.
Yeah. And I think that's what is so beautiful about our generation and podcasting is that you don't have to worry about the podcast so much. Yeah, you want it to grow and you want it to be a great marketing tool to bring people into your products and services. But at the end of the day, it's not like Jordan Shallow Jr. is coming up and he's like taking your audience because he's the better version of you. Not really. People just like you for you and they're going to stay for you. So you don't have to worry about that. You just keep being you. But definitely for the gym space, because it's a separate brand, we were like, you know what? Some people are they have too much money behind them. Like we were talking about before, they have too many resources. And so all the lessons we've learned about group fitness now and what we might know, we don't have because money creates a lot of speed, right? You can get a lot of things done a lot faster. You can put out more content, you can put out better content, you can get more people in the door faster, you can hire more staff. And so they can just kind of take what maybe say F45 did really well and then redo a model and then bring in 10 investors, put $10 million into it and then skyrocket ahead of us. And so it's like, okay, we bootstrapped it to this point, but now we're too far behind. Yeah, it's making good money, but like you said, we're ambitious. And so we're like, we need to take a bigger risk. And that's why we've really pivoted and done this new thing.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think we use it more as inspiration. We spend very little time like complaining about them or like trying to do something different now that they've made a move. I think we've almost never made a move because like another gym made a move or a podcast. Outside really just inspiration. Like I think like Mind Pump, we got some ideas and took some inspiration from them and how they do things. Stayed in touch with them. I think a lot of the ideas that come from podcasts, we have taken inspiration, but we also have made an effort to not just be followers with how we do everything as well.
What about in the online like content space or like the e-commerce space, like selling products online? Like I feel like that is because that's where the coefficient's a wash. Like the one thing that I've really noticed in the last 3 months of everyone being locked inside, like you guys can't go to your gym. You guys can't go and prove to people one-on-one why that you're someone that should be listened to when it comes to the health and fitness. Yeah. Right. So all of a sudden you're on the same level as someone who doesn't own a gym. Because for the last 3 months, it's like, well, yeah, you owned a gym according to the bank, but every day you're still sitting around twiddling your thumbs because you can't go to work. So I've had this like overwhelming feeling of like I'm not breathing down my neck like I'm far ahead, but people like trying to skip the queue. Right, like people in the industry that are trying to come up and hey, like do whatever you want. But I've had this feeling that all of a sudden that there's a false perception of an equal playing ground now that the real world was shut down. It was like the internet and sponsored ads and content, like people sampling, let's say, other people's content. It's like, oh, this is like a weird sort of subliminal. Like I know people that are going through full-on domestic disputes in their captions with other people. Like they're full on like just like Jets and the Sharks, like West Side Story, Capulets and the Montagues, Romeo and Juliet, and just subliminal like, oh, this guy said this. I think that's wrong. I'm going to write that caption about this. And there you go. But like that for me is like when the e-commerce is like, that's where I mostly live now. And prior to this, that like I was doing a lot more in person, but seeing that infringement, like seeing that like, okay, these are really muddy waters online. How do you guys deal with the e-commerce space and selling products on the internet?
Yeah, it's a really good question, I think, because we just launched our programs. And, it's something we held off for a long time for, like, I think a variety of reasons. One of them being, maybe we didn't feel like we were worthy enough to coach or to write a good program online. We didn't have enough experience yet. Second thing is partly because I'm like, hey, it's so much competition out there that like, do we really want to get involved in more programs? Like, is it really that different to your programs and Marcus Philly's program and stuff? They're all great programs, but that would be the way of looking at it as like, the fixed mindset of like, there is a finite number of people in the world that are looking for programs and we've cut the pie up so many times, there's not enough pie to go around. But it's not true. There are so many people that could benefit from programs. There's millions, hundreds of millions of people that need good programming at an affordable price that it would be silly of us not to put something out there and work on it and develop it and be excited about it. Because
what was the tipping point? Because it's funny, like I thought, and I think people that create the best programs are always people that have that hesitation. Right. People who have that hesitation of like, that Dunning-Kruger effect of like, okay, I know there's so much to know. Who am I to put this out into the world? So like, it's always the people. And even now, like people knock down my door, like, oh, what should I do? And like, I'm looking at like a CV and a resume. It's like, holy shit. I mean, shut the fuck up. Don't ever have confidence. Like this guy's going to be a monster.
Yeah.
And it's like, for me, like I have my answer as to what got me over that. But what was your tipping point? Where you're like, all right, like I think we've kind of earned our stripes, or this is valid based off of like the current landscape. Like, what was the tipping point for you guys?
Well, I do think the last podcast tour where we interviewed a ton of people, I was like, we're basically getting on we're sitting across from some people and we're like, all right, we're basically getting access to the people we've always wanted to have on the podcast outside of like Arnold Schwarzenegger and The Rock and that sort of shit, right? But, when you get time with Mark Bell, you get time with the Mind Pump guys, you get time, face to face with Marcus Philly, whoever, these are guys that we've had some virtual relationships with or whatever, but it's just nice to just rub shoulders with them. And I think at the end of the day, you start to realize is all these people are just like you. they've just had the belief that, hey, like I'm just going to put out there, I'm just going to help people. I know what I'm doing. I've helped people before, and let's just build something awesome. And if people want it, they want it. And if they don't, they don't. And I think that was really the point where I got to, is like, you know how to get people strong. You know how to get people fit. You know how to get people in shape. You've been doing it for a long time in person. And part of the realization as well was, I think that a lot of our audience, it's almost like you're thinking you're talking to some version of yourself that's really advanced. And I'm like, I can't help that person. He's too far along. At the end of the day, we are like the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. People that train all the time, are obsessed with the gym, like think about it nonstop ad nauseum. It's like, no, there's actually just people out there that really don't know how to get strong. They've tried 5-3-1 or fighting strength, starting strength, you know, and they've just done these, or Smolov or whatever. They've just done these silly programs, you know, thinking that they're going to be a world champion powerlifter, and they end up breaking their hip or fucking their knee up, and there goes the door. And I just thought, you know, there's better stuff out there, you know, and if these guys can do it, why can't we do it, you know?
I think the reality is, as well, is people just want to do sometimes someone's spin on things, and like you don't need to bring out the best. In the same way that, you know, we've had people doing our gym program for 6 years and getting really good results. It's not like they were like, hey, I need to make sure this is the best program on the planet, and like, where is the evidence here that there is no better program? And just because you're online and I know you can access other programs, like that rule still applies. You know, it doesn't have to be the proven absolute best, and there is no better program. It can be your program. And a good example is like we did, so I guess our most successful e-commerce thing we did was a training journal. So it was like a fitness journal, right? We did a Kickstarter, and that's how we raised the money for it. And it went really, really well. I think given where we were at with the podcast, it went really well. And, you know, someone else had already done that. Like we got a similar idea from John Lee Dumas that does Entrepreneur on Fire. And he had a really good journal. I was like, oh, this is sick. And we just wanted to do our own spin on it, but for fitness and not for like entrepreneurship. So we did our own spin on it, and people love that, you know? And like, yeah, there's already a journal, but there wasn't our journal with our guests in it and our take on it.
And, you know, I tell you what as well, I think part of it is like, once you do, you know, we clocked over 300 interviews this week with James Smith, your friend now that you know him as well.
Mates, bought me a fucking brownie at Good One the other morning. Me and James are homies.
There you go. And, you know, we start to realize that there's so many patterns that show up in the interviews and the responses. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, so everyone that's really fucking strong and gets people really fucking strong, they all keep saying these same things. And after 6 years of just hearing the same things over and over again, you're like, okay. Because I think part of the hesitation that anyone has with putting something out is like, oh, I don't know enough. Like, I'm going to put it out and it's going to be foolish and I've missed this thing and I'm going to look like a fool. But then you start hearing these things and you're like, okay, I think we've got like 80% of it. I've got enough to help, you know, Ben, who's, you know, a year and a half into lifting and he's plateaued and he just wants to get stronger. Like, I have enough information now. And I feel like I've discovered most of it. Yeah, there's always more to learn, but that more to learn is like the last sort of 10%, which is kind of the edge of human performance. But we know the 80% that's going to help the majority of people. And I think once you hear that enough times at all things, like, okay, I think like I'm pretty safe with what I'm putting out now.
You mentioned something really interesting just kind of in passing when you talk about Philly and you talk about Mark Bell, and that was virtual relationships. And I think because I have friends that, you know, are in different arms of business, whether it's fitness or otherwise. And when we're kind of kicking the ball around, and I never say this to someone as like direct advice, but like the virtual relationship, I think is like probably for me, the biggest catalyst. Like, I think I slid into your DMs. Like, I've slid into more men's DMs than I have females by orders of magnitude. Like, owners of companies, owners of gyms. Like,
he knows Kayla's listening to this.
Well, no, but it's just like, well, I met her in person, so that's a feather in my cap. Like, I met her in real life before I knew her on the internet. But no, like, I think that's something that people are so hesitant on, because like, as they're afraid that they might not know enough to write a program that could help someone, and like they're basically getting in their own way. Like, they're too afraid to reach out and create a relationship. And virtual, like, look, they love it or hate it. That's where the world is going, right? So I think that's something that's interesting as far as, like, getting to where it is. Like, no one, like you said, like, the people that you think are doing it by themselves probably have, like, money bags in the background, driving the Monopoly car with a little silver dog. Like, they probably have some backing. But, like, you guys talk about bootstrapping. But, you know, it's so cliche. The network is your net worth kind of thing. Yeah. But, like, for me that never had, like, you know, whether it's genetically modified sweet potatoes or tuna in Coach over the top of the fucking wing next to the bathroom. My backing was an unashamed ability to just cold call, like the guy I had breakfast with this morning. I slid in his DM 3 days ago.
Right.
And it becomes easier. And like as I learn business and I learn concepts around leverage and intelligence and marketing, it becomes easier to have those conversations because you have the acquisition of social capital where, I don't know what this guy knows, but there's however many thousands of people on Instagram who seem to be interested in whatever he has to talk about. But I think having those conversations out of the gate, like, do you remember the first cold, really? Because we talked about Joe D last time. Do you remember the first like cold call? Like, oh shit, I can't believe I'm messaging this guy.
Oh, that is a really good question. Yeah. Oh, man, I feel like one of the big ones that surprised me was Brett Contreras. I feel like I messaged him on Instagram and like not even off the My Moss project. I think I just messaged him off my personal account or something and then went back and forth and then got him on for an interview and we just kicked it off. Like we had the best chat ever, had an awesome time. It was an amazing podcast that, went nuts on the downloads, but I think he was almost shocked. He's like, hey, how did we set this interview up? Because I don't do many interviews. And I was just thinking to myself, dude, this is like the easiest setup I've ever done. You just like, I don't know what went through in his head, but he obviously thought it was a good idea for our podcast. He does a lot of podcasts now, but back when we first interviewed him, he did not do that many podcasts. And maybe it was a little bit of other people's fear. They're like, oh no, I could never get Brett on. So I'm just like not going to message him. And I think I just messaged him randomly about an exercise or something. And yeah, I mean, we'd known about Glute Guy since like before Instagram, right? Like
when he was trashing Poliquin, like in front with his fucking frosted tips in front of his mom's couch in his basement. Grill the Guru. I do remember.
Right. Yeah, and I think that one shocked me a little bit. And like once you can get some social credits, and you'd be like, hey, we've had Brett on or whatever. They're like, oh shit, and then you get the next person on and the next person, and obviously at this point it becomes a lot easier. But yeah, in the beginning, I think that was like one of the big ones for us was Contreras.
Yeah, it's a good point though, because I think really the whole thing came about because when we had John North on, I don't know if you know, it's the weightlifter.
Yeah, we just had him on. My business partner had him on.
Yeah, I listened to that episode. It was good.
Killer.
Yeah.
I'm astonished he's still alive, really.
Oh, man.
He's complete wild man.
He's indestructible.
And I don't know if we told you yet, but he's kind of what got it started because he came out to our gym, did a seminar, and like hung out with us, slept up here, actually where you are right now.
Part of history. It's amazing.
And we did a podcast with him, and exactly what you said. Like I reckon that was like one of the first things I did when I got the gym. I was like, oh, dude, we got a gym. I'm going to email John North, see if he'll come to a seminar with us. Because like I got a gym now. Like this is amazing. And it's like one of the first things I did. And then like, a week later, still got the emails. His wife was like, yeah, we'll come to a seminar in like a year and a bit. And that's what happened.
Yeah, sweet. It's like having a pool when you're a kid. All of a sudden you got friends. You got friends that are just coming over with like their towels around their necks. Yeah, I think it brings up an interesting point, right? Like, and this is something that my friend Kyle and I talk about a lot. And he's more on the business end than me. But this idea of leverage, right? Like what you just described, like your hand being stamped into the forbidden city of influencer world. Like, oh no, like you do know we've had Brett Contreras on. Like, excuse me, Brad Schoenfeld, what are you doing next weekend? Alan Aragon, give me a word, please. Like, but allows you to leverage. Yeah. Right. How have you been able to use leverage outside of the social space? Like, how have you used leverage in the gym to grow from one location to 2 to 3 to 2 to 3?
Yeah, I think in the sense of the gyms, a lot of leverage comes from, and this is something that Naval talks about on his podcast. I know you listen to that show, like playing, and I think this happens a lot in sort of the fitness industry, is like, short-term gain for yourself personally is generally unethical. Like if you make an unethical move, you'll win in the short term. But if you are ethical, you'll win in the long term. And I feel like now, as we move into the 7th year of owning gyms, the 8th year of owning gyms, it's like, we've always been ethical. We've always like made the right moves. We've never ripped customers off, or, we've had some gym owners like sell Herbalife and stuff. I'm like, come on, man, like this is fucked up. Like came in to help people, not like to make a quick buck. And I think it's paying off just because your reputation never gets tarnished. And yeah, there's obviously, hiccups along the way where your reputation is questioned a little bit, or you make some bad decisions or whatever, you burn some bridges. I think that always happens in business. But long term, people know, okay, these guys put out good programs. They care about their clients. They hire good coaches. They get rid of bad coaches. They don't stand for bullshit. Like they charge what they're worth. And those things just, I think, stack up over time. And then when you get to the point that you want to do a big project and you need investment, you can get backing. You know, you can get people that trust you.
It's an Insta street cred, by the way. I love it.
Dude, it's nuts around here.
We're Bondi Junction. We're actually behind steel walls. We're all sitting cross-legged beneath the plane of the window. The drive-by is 3 stories up here. Crazy. Because a raccoon a kangaroo could probably jump this high. That's really what you got to worry
they're
about.
fucking dangerous, bro.
Yeah, that's really what you want. I was thinking about the other day, like if Lion King was shot in Australia, how shitty a movie that would be. but like
Wombat.
Yeah, like you make an interesting point, and I think that's like people try to, and it's almost antithetical to the idea of the fitness industry because it's so dose dependent, it's so immediate gratification.
Yeah.
So like to be able to play the long game in a very double tap serotonin driven space and stick to your guns on an ethical standpoint, because like the thing I like that you mentioned about DMing Brett was you didn't DM Brett for anything. Right, you didn't DM him for personal gain other than like I wanted to know something about an exercise. Yeah. Right, and I think that's something that like when I had people reach out to me, and it's for like I never asked anyone for business advice. I do now because I'm in like a cool position because I've leveraged based off good relationships. Like that thing that I was talking about where Jordan grabbed me by the neck and that thing we were recording, we were never released. The guy was a dick. Fuck that guy. Like I don't like you can take his R8 and shove it up his ass. Like I'll never have him around anything I do because I don't want to be associated with what he does. It would have been expedient. It would have got like, some traction on our shitty fucking YouTube channel. Yeah. But I would have been like, oh God, I feel like I'm dirty. Like I got to shower. And I think it's decisions made over time that allow that leverage to mean something. Because some people knock on your door and like the industry is really small. Like if I'm having cough, like I didn't know, like because I was here for a bit earlier on in the year. I didn't know who James was. It's so strange to me when you can end up on social media and you can end up like on an Instagram account that like hundreds and thousands and millions of people know. I have no fucking idea who this is. I feel like that's the only industry that's the case. Where like Ford is well aware of Ferrari. Like these two motor companies, they are like, oh my God, have you heard of this Toyota? What the fuck is this Toyota thing? Where it's like you can come across someone, don't even know they exist. And in Bondi, I feel like now that I'm aware of it, like everyone I walk by is some sort of fitness influencer. Like I'm pretty sure that chick's got like a bajillion followers. I had no idea. Like how do you work in the same industry as me? But you can leverage unethical decisions to a certain degree. But I feel like every time you deviate away from that center, your value gets less and less and less. Like you said, your reputation. Yeah. And like for me, how you said you were talking to James and you start to hear things that are common. And that's one that I think that the deeper you get into this, the more people are like reputation. Like what are people saying about you when you're not around?
Oh yeah, totally. And I think about this all the time, and like especially because with the new project we're doing, we're building like an ambassador program. And I realize, having been in this space for so long, not even really consciously thinking about it, because I'm not hiring the person I'm interviewing across from me for anything, but what you are learning is what are the ethics of this influencer space? How do people act? Do they, if they say, oh, no worries, dude, I'm going to share it with my email list or I'll put it on my social media, and they don't, okay, there's just certain things that people are saying that they're going to do and they're not doing, right? And you want to just like match up words with actions. And I think that it's just having done it for so long now, for 6 years, and interviewed so many people, you start to be like, okay, he's a good guy, and you hear it from someone else, you hear it from someone else, you hear it from someone else, like, good gut instinct on that, correct, good person. Check. And the amount of people that you put into that little box that have a tick next to their name, man, it's like probably count them on 2 hands from 300 episodes, So it's like after a while, and having done the Instagram influencer industry and you've been a part of it, like you figure out pretty quickly who you want to do business with or who you want to hang out with or who you can trust and who you don't.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, like when you dig to the bottom of it, is like who's leveraged their way based off disingenuous intentions. Yeah. And for me, like it might sound weird. Every time I reach out, all I want to reach out for is train. Like that's my Trojan horse. That's me showing up inside the wooden thing in the middle of the night. Like if I want to meet with someone, more contracts and deals have been signed with me not wearing sleeves in the last 4 years than probably ever in my life. Well, I never had a job before that either. So it's like, because that for me, like that, I don't know. We obviously all love training, but that tells me if I want to know anything more. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, but like I don't want to train legs. Like, all right, fuck this guy. I literally, bro, there's this kid, and he's like, this is the first time I ever felt old. Like, there's a kid, and I'm gonna. So his name's Lucas White something. Oh fuck, dude, I'm so sorry, I forgot your name. but he's a kid. Like, he's 19 years old, and he's just this Aussie. He's like the most handsome kid you've ever seen in your life. He's one of the biggest Aussie TikTok influencers in Australia. Like, he's got some obscene number of hundreds of thousands of millions. And I don't know what TikTok is.
Yeah.
Like, this was like I remember when Facebook was kind of a thing, but I was going MySpace to the death. I was riding out that death cab fucking Hurley background until right into the ground. It would have been me and Tom standing there at the Rapture, the last friends.
Yes, Tom.
Just wherever you are out there, man. Thank you. But like, this kid talked to me about TikTok, and like, he's a model and a good kid. But I was like, all right, man, like, let's train. He's like, yeah, no legs. I'm like, fuck, what is going on? Man. But like, there's some people, like, that's how I've got to know, like, some of my, like you said, like when you guys got to do the tour in the States, like, I could only imagine what that was like to sit down in a room with people. Like, it's a weird kind of pseudo celebrity status, because we could walk through, you know, we go down to IGA and be like, man, totally, like, Mark Bell slid in the DM. Or like Mike O'Hearn messaged me last Christmas and be like, who the fuck are you? Like, dude, are you serious? How do you not know how Mike O'Hearn, the fucking Titan, bro, the Titan? And it's just like, how is it that, like, in our space, it means so much? Because every time you go and reach out to these people, and if you're just genuine, it's like, hey, the hip thrust. I'm assuming it was the hip thrust.
It probably was.
Right, because what? Like, I don't think Brett gets many bicep curl DMs. Like, hey, man, how do you grow that hair on your chest? But I think that just comes from a genuine place, and that's what started all this to begin with. Is like, yeah, we just like lifting weights. Like, hey, do you want to be friends and start a gym? Oh, it's only been 5 days. Yes,
yeah. No, I think you tell so much from someone in a training session. It's almost kind of like our version of golf. It's how like lawyers do golf, right? And they're like, all right, let's have a meeting. Like, oh, let's go, you know, do a round of golf. It's like, all right, cool. Let's do a leg session or something. Because I think you can really test, okay, how hard do these people push themselves? Is it like, are they like psychotic to the point it's like, okay, this person has like a few screws loose? Or is it like, this guy can have fun, he can enjoy himself, but like, hey, like when we go to work, we go to work. So he's got a good balance of like seriousness and fun. Or is this guy just like really soft and he's just a little bit like he's a bitch, you know? And it's like, I don't really want to spend time. You're not very tough either. So I think you can find a pretty good balance. And what I think is also good about training is if you do a session that you know they haven't done before, like if I was to, I don't know, do close grip snatches with you and I don't know, burpees over the box or something, and I just threw it at you, it'd also be interesting. Like, you can tell from someone versus like, fuck it, you know what, this is gonna be shit and I suck at this, but fuck it, I'll do it.
I'm doing an F45 class tomorrow morning.
Oh, you are?
With the CEO of F45.
Oh, there you go.
Or the former CEO with Rob. But it's the same idea. Like,
right.
I'll take that to the fucking ground. Like, I'm gonna, if it's a Prefontaine thing. Like, you might beat me, but you're gonna have to bleed to do it.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting too, like, because you can tell a lot about people.
Please say that at the start of the F45.
I'm gonna carve it into my
everybody. Everybody listen up.
Grab the microphone.
Just
rip it off the trainer's face, and I just want to let all you pussies in here know.
Turn the music down. Turn the fucking music down. I got something to say.
Shut up, Teddy.
This is gonna be that'll go viral, and I'll probably end up either in jail or the hospital. But I think too, like, what's the motivation? Because now when people, and again, like, it's not like it's a common occurrence, but people reach out to me for whatever reason, I'm not really sure, and it's like that's my breaking bread. Because like, if you're about this, we're gonna train. Like, when the kid comes up to me and is like, oh, like, hey, like, can we train together? And the headphones are in, and like, he's got like written down in a notebook, like, this is what we're going to do. It's like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Like, if this kid wants to like work for us or be a coach for us or something, and he comes with a structure and a plan and initiative, like, comes up to, not to be a prick, but like, comes up to me and is like, this is what we're going to do for the workout. I was like, fuck yeah, sweet. I can let you just do shit. Oh, great. Yeah. I'm going to chase you down. Like, that's a job interview for me. And it has been on the other end of it. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Ben Pekulski.
Yeah,
Ben,
I've had him on the show.
Yeah, dude, fucking, you know, that was the guy for me that was like, holy shit. Like Joe D in that situation, or like Mark Bell or Marcus Philly, where you're like, man, I followed this guy. Like, he grew up the street. And I remember being 4:30 a.m. in Tampa Bay. I was not a morning person at the time. And this is when personal systems started to evolve and anxiety attacks started to stop happening. And the workout was like he played like the Russian war music that he listens to, all that epic shit. Like, you're going to like attack the Romans or some crap like that.
Oh my God.
And it was terrifying. And it was leg session too. 4:30 a.m. leg session in Tampa. Like,
is that's his normal thing, or he does his
goddamn mind? No, and it's the thing he does.
Was he competing, or he's
no,
retired?
Dude, this was like this was
like
2 years ago. Fucked, man, so fucked. Like, just Like I was staying at his house. I stayed in like one of the wings of his home, and like I didn't sleep because I was too excited. So it was pretty easy to get up at 4:30.
Yeah.
But like I didn't like I was like, oh, I don't want to wake him up. So I was up at 4, and at some point he was able to sneak out at 280 pounds and get into the kitchen before me. And he was like 2 chapters deep in a book. And he's like, I'm gonna go for a walk and meditate real quick. He's like, yeah, get whatever you want out of the fridge. And I was like, this guy's on another fucking level. But like, I could be like, oh man, like so back in the 2014 Arnold, it's like you get that back double bicep. I just shut the fuck up. I just sat there in the shadow of one of his legs. And then we just got in the car and we got to the gym, and it was just like, all right, here's what we're going to do. And it's like, I just bled.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, man, this guy's going to go. And it's like, this is a proving ground. Like this is, and talking about like skipping the queue, where it's like, you know, you can edit, you can filter, you can curate, you can delete comments now, you can block people, which is, I didn't even know you could do that until I realized I was blocked by people. It's like, I like
Found out the hard way.
It's so strange. Like this is how it happens, right? Someone shares a post, like, hey, this kind of sounds like this person's talking about you. And then all of a sudden, like in the little DM, it's like you can't click, all the links are dead. I'm like, I don't know what that is. It's like, and then like someone had to explain to me, and like, oh, I can't click the link. And it's like maybe something wrong with Instagram or something. And they're like, oh no, I hate to be the one to tell you this, man. But it's like that's what I like. For me, it's training. Like it's the proving ground. It's like, all right, like bring it, right? Like so many people can talk the talk, walk the walk, post the post. They can caption the caption.
Sure.
But like, I think proof's in the pudding, man.
Yeah.
And especially with what you guys do, like 3 gyms isn't a fluke, right? Like you can keep one gym going, I think. Like I think you can run, and I know people who bleed, like don't have a single system, don't have their life together, will blow it up their nose, go over to the gym and just like scan members in or whatever, and they can make that work. They work 16 hours a day, they'll die at 45, but they can make that work. But 3 gyms, especially now with the competition, like I think that's something that speaks volumes, not just about systems, personal, not just about systems, business, but just like you gotta like it at the end of the day. And I see a lot of people are just opportunistic and like, oh, this is a low barrier of entry of making money. I can make money in this industry, and then they just dive in and kind of muddy the waters.
Oh yeah, I mean to get to where we had to kind of grind to, like almost sometimes when we talk about it on our show and we walk through the different stories, I just think to myself, man, I don't know how the hell we made it to this point. Like we got through so much shit to get to it here. And then I think what you try and do is you try and make the people that are in that place now where they're stuck, that like, hey, you can get out of this. Like you don't have to always wake up, like close up at 9 p.m. and then be up at 4 a.m. opening again, like every single day, 6 days a week. Like there is a way out of this. And I think so much of the image industry is just Amateurville. Like they just started because they like coaching, they had 60 grand and they found a cheap lease. That, you know, it's been weeding a lot of people out. And I think a lot of people got surprised what business actually means. Like it's way more than what they expected. It's way different to what they expected. Now I think it's changed a lot less people, like even some coaches that started with us when they were young, they're like, just so you know, like we want to learn off you and we want to start our own gym. We're super transparent with our staff. So we like run all the numbers every week and they see everything and they know what we do in the business. So there's never any doubt as to like, these guys aren't just like sipping pina coladas and booking trips to Hawaii. They will come to us after 2 or 3 years and be like, I'm not opening a gym. Like I thought, you know, it's all about coaching and helping people. I'm like, it kind of is, but like also how much do you like spreadsheets? How much do you like understanding psychology and marketing? How much do you like learning copywriting? You know, there's so many different components to this that people didn't know about. And I think that when they're coaching and they're getting up early and they're tired and they're in between PT clients and, you know, they haven't got enough calories in their body and they're just running on caffeine, like it just feels impossible. It just feels like the point that you talked about when you had an anxiety attack, the fact that you're here now in Bondi, probably in some respects almost feels, how fuck did I do that? But it can be done. Like,
oh yeah, but I think I don't know. It's hard because I'm of like, you know, if you love it, let it kill you. Right, like that's kind of like my ethos. Like that's it. Like if it's worth dying for, then it's worth doing, right? And if it's not, because here's the thing, I struggle with that mindset of like the coach who comes in like, look, I want to start a gym, I want to help people, but then they run into the spreadsheets, they run into profit margins, they run into overhead, they run into marketing and Facebook pixel, and you know, well, the Lumix is the 4K. What's the frame rate? Is that white balance the same on both of those cameras? Like, well, I just want to help people. It's like, these are the tools, man. Like, shit or get off the pot. This is how you help people. Like, do you want to be competitive on the social media space? You know, like, do you know Lyle McDonald?
Yeah.
He's brilliant, but he's not, because he just fucking just does these weird old man, like, and nothing. I think he's like one of the smartest, most forward-thinking research guys ever. He might be nuts, but like, how much are you helping people, right? Like, if everyone has this very virtuous, like, you know, Sermon on the Mount, like, I bestow upon everyone fitness, and it's like, yeah, but like, how much do you actually want to do that if you're not willing to do what you guys have done? Have you dragged genetically modified sweet potatoes with a tire down the street?
If like, not, no fucking clue.
Exactly, though. But it's like, have you offended everyone on an Airbus A380 with 4 cans of tuna on a flight to Beirut? Like, have you slept in a Breaking Bad Winnebago in the driveway of some meth head's trap house because that's the only Airbnb you could afford when you were recording a podcast? It's like, true story. And it's like, so you don't really want it, right? And that's the hard part I have with the old guard. And that's why, like, I really commend you guys for being on the leading edge in business in person as well as business online, because the old days were different. Like, you know, I talked to Dave Tate, and I think he's probably one of the old guard that's done the transition and the evolution the best. And you see the resentful old crowd, and it's like, you know, like, oh, yeah, put your cell phone away. It's like, all right, I'm just going to turn the lights off in your gym then.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to steal your barbells. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's like, this is where the game is played, man. Like, these are the tools of the trade. Like, you can't, it's like taking a saw away from a carpenter. You can't take, you know, 4K cameras and Zoom H6s and whatever the fuck kind of Ed Sheeran mixer board you got over there. You can't take that away.
Yeah. We'll just shout, and if you can hear it, you can hear it. You enjoy it.
Yeah, but that's, and I don't know, like, it's hard too, because it's the same generation that's like, oh, fucking, like, well, how old are you guys? You guys what, 30?
28.
You're 28?
27,
27? Well, fuck me then. But it's like, you know, you guys are definitely millennials. I might be able with the beard past to be old enough to be not. But like, you look at other people, and it's like millennials can kind of take a rap. Like, you know, I was sitting in a coffee shop the other day with a MacBook, thick frame glasses, listening to Tracy Chapman, working on working on a book, and I was like, I might be a hipster. Like, I'm sipping an almond latte. Like, I might be hip as fuck.
Yeah, you are.
But it's like, my parents so different, and like, my parents don't give me a hard time, but some of my parents' friends don't understand what I do, right? And it's like, yeah, like, you could also go to the movies for a nickel, and you could buy a house for $17,000, and your education didn't cost you that much. Right? So it's
free.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to be on the other side of it. And like, I think there's something to be said about being in the foxhole at the same time, right? Because like, and this is where I almost got away from podcasting, because I kept having conversations with people that were just out of the game, right? Like in the CrossFit space, like I was listening to guys like, and the big name CrossFit podcast, and I would talk to them, and they would talk to me about like squatting, and I was just like, why are you talking to me about squatting? Like, when's the last time you squatted? How old? Like, not to say how old are you? Like, I mean, fuck, I know plenty of old guys that are strong, but like, it's not about a relevance thing. It's just like, do you even like this, or do you just like the outcome? Like, do you like is this process driven? That was another thing that stuck out when you were talking about how it is that you developed goals for your clients coming in. Right. It was a process driven, right? And I think that's the whole game. It's always a process. Like you said, you guys would never imagine that you'd be opening a semi-private space when you were opening a CrossFit box 6 years ago, right? Yeah. It's something to be said about like, do you like it enough to be able to evolve, to keep on doing it in the way that it has to be done? Yeah,
well, I think that's what it is. If you don't like evolving, then opt out of business. Like, go work for someone else and just stick to the same thing, because that's what it is. And it's like, you know, I've just got LinkedIn, and I've added so many people, and they always have the, hey, congratulate this person on 10, 15, 20 years with one company, and all these people are in their 50s. And it's like, I've already worked for more companies than you, and you've got 30 years on me. It's just because it's a totally different generation where it was like, all right, get really good at one thing, go into that job under a good big company, nice and secure, and just ride it all the way to the death. But then you look at guys, so really, you probably wouldn't know this guy, Mark Boris. He's like a famous Australian entrepreneur, 64 years old. And he's like, was he on the Shark Tank? No, he's not on Shark Tank. He had his own show. He had, what was the show Donald Trump was the business show, right?
You're fired.
The
that
Intern
one.
or something.
Yeah, I'm blanking.
Raph, come on, bro. Anyway, whatever that show is called, The Apprentice.
The Apprentice.
Yeah, The Intern. Same thing. And so Mark was he did the Australian Apprentice, and he was like the Donald Trump. But so he's like a really, really savvy, like famous Australian entrepreneur. And I was listening to him on a podcast the other day. He just lives down the road. And he was talking about social media. And the way he talked about social media was a guy that is deep and well across social media, the same way a 21-year-old kid would talk about social media. And I just thought, this is the perfect example of an entrepreneur that could easily rest on his laurels. Hundreds of millions of dollars, really successful. Obviously, still grinds every day, gets up early, hits the boxing bag, does old school fucking bodybuilding. He's in ridiculous shape for his age, right? And so obviously mad respect for him. And he's still evolving with the times. He could outsource it to someone else. And he's like, man, it's just so different now because I'm just like putting out so much content. And sometimes like I get behind on my content schedule. I'm like, I forgot my IGTV. What was my long form content I was going to talk about today? Oh yeah, that. And I'm like, dude, like you don't need to worry about any of this shit. But he's like right on the edge there because he knows, and he's setting the example of like, hey, this is what it takes to be successful and continue to be successful. And it's just kind of in his DNA. I was telling Raph, he got mentored by Kerry Packer, which most Australians would know, basically one of the richest guys ever to live in Australia, like super billionaire. Like, was he media mogul? Yep. And casinos and stuff, right? He had his hand in everything.
Yeah, Channel 9, Crown Casino.
Yeah, and then his son, James Hack's like obviously super crazy wealthy. They're like they're kind of like one slight small tier below who's the guy that owns Fox News? Murdoch. Yeah. So like Murdoch's kind of the pinnacle, and like the Buzz Aldrin. Has Buzz Aldrin stepped on the moon first? Yeah. Buzz Aldrin. Yeah. Wait, who's the guy that stepped on first?
Lance Armstrong.
Armstrong. Yeah. The Buzz Aldrin. Yeah. Lance Armstrong.
Yeah. That'd be a hell of a race.
Yeah. So he's kind of like the Buzz Aldrin in the entrepreneur world. So like this guy Mark that I was talking about, the social media guy, he was mentored by like the second best guy ever in Australian business, and you just realize like, man, these guys, what it takes to be the best is you're always evolving, and I think it's just kind of life in general. It's just always evolving. Look at our training; it's just like always changing. How much used to be fucking 30 kilos heavier almost, and then you realize
F45 tomorrow. Like, if you want to talk about how much I'm willing to bleed for this, how much passion and evolution I have, like I will sit down with a guy that's worth, like if he gives me one, even having breakfast with him this morning, like that was the most valuable experience I've had in, I don't know, since the last time I talked to a guy with 9 or 10 figures in a bank account, which I can't really count that often. Like that's like getting advice from the guy with the 800-pound bench press. That's the Julius Maddox of business. There's only a handful of these guys. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest tells of someone that's invested in something is how well do they know the history of it. I started studying history and political science. So it's like when stuff like this happens, COVID, it's like Hong Kong flu, 1968. Same thing. When we put a man on the moon, there's a bunch of race riots. Same shit. It's fine. Know the history, right? Like lifting, like I'll ask people, like, do you know who Charles Poliquin is? Do you know who Andre Benoit is? Do you know who Charlie Francis is? Then you're not really into lifting. Like you've named off a bunch of business people, and I sat here and went, I'm just gonna grab this notebook here real quick and write. But it's like, and that's how much attention I paid because I don't know the full story. Like I guarantee you, once my lungs stop bleeding tomorrow morning, I asked this dude, like, hey, do you know who these two Australian? I'm not going to say Lance Armstrong. I'm going to say Neil Armstrong. The Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin of Australian business. He's like, oh yeah, this guy. He's probably got him in his cell phone. Yeah. Right? I think it's like, and again, it really comes down to like a few core principles that you've just been circulating through and just talking about how these core principles play out in the way you find business partners and treat business partners and the way you treat members and coaches and clients and the podcasts. And like, there's really only a few principles, like be passionate about it, like hold yourself accountable, right? And be able to adapt and evolve. And I think that's really like when you guys build it out from there, like that's, if you work off of those three things, it's like how you do one thing is how you do everything. Like if you think about coaching and all you, especially you guys, like I don't know how you it stresses me out talking to you guys because I have to worry about my MacBook really at the end of the day. But to have the faces and the names and the gyms and the coaches and then not to mention the clients and the marketing and the podcast, as I'm rattling this off, does this seem like a lot? Do you guys compartmentalize this in your brain to be able to like get through a day?
I'll tell you what, last week was definitely one of those moments where I was like, no, I'm good. Oh my fucking God. If one more thing goes wrong, I swear to God, I'm checking out. Like it was, I think last week was the most testing week we've probably had to this day. buying out business.
We had some testing.
Buying out business partners is definitely a testing time, but last week, reopening gyms, renovations, new models, so forget everything, resetting semi-private, it was just, we had some staff check out and they want to leave now, and it's just part of it. That's what you have to understand is if I get too high or too low, it's just, I'm going to get exhausted, I'm going to burn out. So you just need to realize we're going to get through this. We've been through shit like this before. This is just the next iteration of shit. And it's you just keep chipping away and you keep going through it. And I think exactly what you talked about, those key principles, if you just stick to them, they work because they work with training. If you stay accountable, if you're passionate about training, if you give effort every single time, you just get fitter, you stay in shape, you're healthy, you're strong, you feel better. It's just stick to the principles and just have faith the whole time. Like you said, in this new generation, a lot of them just don't have that faith. They don't have that staying power. It could be because of social media. It could be because of this convenience world, this first world we've created. Well, I don't know. Maybe this is just how it is.
It could be that, and I think you nailed it when we talked about training. It could be some people are a bitch.
Yeah.
Just stop being a bitch. To start winning, stop losing first.
Yeah.
If you stop losing first, winning becomes way easier.
Yeah.
But the one thing I think the biggest takeaway for me is always there's a guy in America named JP Price who squats over 1,000. And at the time I was competing against him, he's massive, a massive human being.
Bigger than how big you were?
Oh, yeah, probably 20 or 30 kilos heavier than me.
Oh my Lord.
Massive.
When you were 130?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, think Jurassic era. Think just a nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. And I remember being kind of starstruck, it was my second or third meet. And I asked JP, he's was the strongest American squatter at the time. And I still might be if I'm not mistaken. And he squatted over 900 at the meet, 950 or 960, which is 420 kilos or something like that. Yeah. And in retrospect, it was a really stupid question, but it's something that kind of stuck with me. And I was like, what does that feel like? Mm. And he was like, what's your max? And I was I don't know, 300 and something kilos or whatever. And he goes, like that. And I was like, holy fuck. Yeah, of course, because that's his max and that's my max.
Yeah.
Right. And it's if he said it was easy, he's probably not going to be that good of a lifter because he would probably push harder. Mm. The harder part is finding things that actually can test him now, because you can't squat 900 all the time. So how do you get stronger? How do you guys progress in business when you've been down so many roads before? Right. And I think it's the people that get complacent. It's old mate that's crushing the long form social IG content schedule. I don't even fucking do that. I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants most days. Yeah. But he's just looking for that new challenge. Right. And I think that's where you can have the core principles, but if you're not seeking out the challenge to actually test and battle test those principles against real world shit, then you just kind of because there's no staying still. Right. There's no stasis. There's no I'm going to chill here for a bit. If you're stagnant, that's death. Yeah. Right. And that's something that I think a lot of people can get complacent with in the social media space and even in the online or in the in-person space. It's oh, we're good. It's you're never good. You always got to be either looking over your shoulder for the next thing or looking over your shoulder for the next thing coming. Right. Something's going to come for you. And that's primal, right? That's how we've sort of adapted and evolved. So I think you guys are just a living example of doing that in way too many arenas.
So, it does feel like that sometimes.
I could imagine. This is kind of you guys do podcasts. The thing at the end, I'll put it at the front in the intros because it's I hate this little this call, oh no, I'll call you moment of oh, for fuck's sake. It's a weird breakup. Yeah, let me guess. It's not you, it's me, or whatever the fuck, however that goes. Do the social media spiel. I will do this way more eloquently in the intro and give you guys the due credit.
You want to do it?
Go on.
Awesome. We are the Mind Muscle Project. If you're listening to this, I would recommend go back and listen to your episode on our show. I think that was very good.
What a company. What a compcompany, man. You know what? I'm going to fuck you guys. What was the title of that?
Oh, yeah. It was why
everyone's an idiot and Jordan says fuck off.
Like that. It was just, I was listening back to the episode because I like to listen back to them and for lots of reasons. But one of the reasons is to find a good, appropriate title. And I was like, you know what? I feel like this is just the perfect title. It's almost why the level of fitness, the professional education standard is fucked in the fitness industry. Because I feel like that was the kind of theme of the podcast. Yeah.
I'm really abrasive.
I couldn't agree with it more. So I was like, you know what? This is the strongest message from this podcast, at least how I saw it. This is why people need to click on it.
And I appreciated that so much because it's kind of it's what you see is what you get. Because I think that was probably the takeaway. And if that offended you, it's like, don't listen to literally anything else I've ever talked about.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make sure this one is equally as clickbaity.
offensive.
Just mind muscle projects as fuck all you guys. That's going to be episode 195. Mind muscle projects as fuck the world.
Yeah.
So mind muscle project, and appreciate you being a company man and pushing it back onto me. So kudos to that. Individuals.
Yeah, at Raph Freedman.
And Lachy Rowston. But most Americans really struggle with that. So if you just go to the Mind Muscle Project, we're in the bio. You can find us there.
I had my girlfriend / Australian translator. Both of your names.
I'll help
actually.
out. So you want to go at Lachy
Lachy, brilliant.
Rowston.
Okay. That's
at Lachy Rowston if you're in America.
That was good. That was very American fanatical. I appreciate your time, man. I appreciate you having me into your studio.
Thanks for coming in.
Good stuff.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, bro.
Thanks, man.